So, good morning, everybody. Good to see you here. So, I thought we speak a little bit about no-till drilling, but now many persons has quite a bit of experience of the no-till. I would like to ask how many of you have tried no-till or are doing no-till now? Hands up. Good, that's quite a few have some experience. Perfect. Therefore, I did not want to go how to start no-till. I want to go a little bit more into the challenges we see with no-till, because that is now when we're at the stage we are, we all know it's not always straight road. It can be a bit like this, but how do we face these challenges? And how do we stick to the main concept without causing damage, but still we can maybe make some compromises to maintain yield. So that's a little bit the subject of today. And here very much is about keeping the system approach. Here when we speak about no-till, we saw in the beginning of when no-till came, very many people went in with it, lower cost, everything, but forgot the big picture. Whereas the machine is only a small part of the big picture in no-till. So I think that's one very, very important part to take along here. That's a big message there also. And we need to move to the soil and put that into center. That's an important piece there. And there is always the discussion, should I have a disc, should I have a tine drill? And both of them have their benefits. We started with a disc, for example, with a Rapide back in the days. That's a no-till disc, it comes from a no-till disc. So we know both the benefits and the disadvantages of. And you can basically say the advantages of this one is the disadvantage of that one, and vice versa here. So there are, both systems have their good things and their challenges, of course. Our job as farmers is to navigate and we have to choose one system. We often don't have enough money to have two systems, but we have to find then how can we make the best out of that system we choose. That's the important part there. And I look a little bit at the most, when I spoke to a lot of no-tillers, what has been the biggest challenges. So I listed those a little bit, and I thought we'll go through them one-on-one here. So transition period, when you start until the soil has settled in a new equilibrium. Residues, it's always a big thing in no-till. It's a big thing in any minimum tillage as well. Placement emergence, soil conditions, we have differences there as well. And weeds, pests, nutrients, very interesting as well. Wet years, maybe a very big challenge for us in no-till. I think that's a really big issue. And if we start with the transition, that's what we want to achieve is, of course, coming here, but we're starting there, basically. And during the time that the soil is in transit from this to that, we may encounter yield variations. And that is quite challenging. It depends very much on your soil type, which type of variations you will have, and how long they will last. Heavier soils are easier to transform. Lighter soils, they take longer. And the more sand you have in the soil, the longer it takes, because it's hard to build up organic matter in a sandy soil. So, so that's good to keep in mind there. And depending on how you start, so to say, if it's a real good start, the condition right away, it will go quicker than if you have a difficult soil from beginning. It will, of course, take longer time as well. And there are some soils that are really challenging. If you have a self-compacting sandy soil, that will pose a problem, because you will not be able to get the roots down where they should be. Maybe there is possibilities to do some loosening, strip tilling, some cultivation, and so on, just to manage to get the roots down there. We need to get the nutrients, we need to get to water. That's important to keep in mind. Organic soils are also more difficult than other soils to go into no-till. And if we have too much water in the soils, that's also a thing that is problematic. So, and we do not get earthworm buildup in those soils. And that's, that earthworm is a very central part of the no-till. When we look at varieties and crops, it is, we need also to think a little bit what we're doing here. Because when we're moving often to a little bit wider row distances, we have less sensitivity for the autumn crops. We have a little bit higher sensitivity for the spring crops when we have them. And we just need to see that we choose varieties that are working in these conditions. And the thing is, we also need to understand that the varieties that we read about in the booklets from the seed companies, they have not been tested during no-till conditions, almost any of them. So they may react a bit different when you go into no-till. So that's also good to keep in mind. But a strong ear development and kernel weight, that's a good thing to go for, definitely. And unstable yields, how do we do that at all? Can we reduce the risk here? And one thing that is before you start, that you, your tillage, that you go stepwise up already when you plan to go no-till, that you try to do that stepwise. Then you don't have such a big horizon to cover at once. So that makes it easier. And cover crops are a part of a no-till system in order to stay green as much as possible. So live roots will improve this, definitely. And we have, we can go into the system after an alfalfa red clover that gets roots really well down there. The longer it stays on the ground, the better it is, the more roots they develop. So those are all things that can help you with your, to get going. But very important to also speak to people. We have, for example, here, I spoke to Martin in Sweden. There are Facebook groups for no-tillers. There are WhatsApp groups for no-tillers and so on. Try to make a community, discuss what there is. Try to find people close to you, same soil type, whatever, that you can stay in touch with. And usually, the ones doing no-till, they are very engaged. And our experience is a very good sharing community as well. So that's a key thing, to always interact with people and discuss the results. Why are they like they are? If we move over into residue management, that's a big thing. Once upon a time when no-till started, it was actually a lot of burning going on of the fields of residues. And then, of course, when you go into a field with burned residues, you don't have to do so much with the drill in order to make it function. Then things are working. So, but when we start to see that instead we have all the residues basically left on the surface, that's quite a big challenge. So looking at that, residues is almost the top thing we need to handle to make a good job with the no-till. And usually, keep the stubble short. That is always an advice to manage to do that good, and to do your drilling in an angle a little bit, especially when you're coming out of a tighter row distance. You don't want to go exactly the same angle with the drill as you've been drilling before. So that's important to keep in mind. And never, if it's possible, have any stop with the combine so that you release a lot of straw in one place. We have no forgiving tilling here that we can do to take away this heaps of straw here. So that's problematic. So always to try to have as even as possible straw distribution. That's really a key thing there. And because the straw will follow us throughout the whole period of growth of the plant, we don't get rid of it that fast, and it doesn't disappear by itself, so to say. Our combines do not deliver a perfect distribution, unfortunately. The wider they are, the more problematic that gets. We can have changes during the day. Moisture in the morning, moisture in the evening is different than moisture during the day. We have different variations in the field of how much yield we have, which will also make this vary and so on. So this is a challenge for us, definitely. And you can test this either by raking 1 meter together with a rake, or you use your hands and pull 1 meter together after combine. You can see how your combine is doing here. Usually it's quite a surprise when you do it, because it's often less good than you thought and than what it looked like visually. So that's quite interesting. Some farmers has been angry about this. So this is an Australian farmer. He has been combining on 18 meters, controlled traffic farming, and really did not like the buildup of the residues. So he left all the straw right behind the combine, have a pickup here, and then chopping and distribution to 18 meters decentralized. So think a little bit like the lime spreaders here, where they fold out plates to decentralize the distribution. Quite interesting way to get to the problem, I think. But a little bit for you to bring along, just a small tip how to avoid this problem, that where we go with the combine, we start the same spot every year and drive the same spot. What we're doing then is that we're building up organic matter 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. So it gets more and more in the same spot and less here all the time. So we make our field uneven. What you can do there is to switch half a combine width every second year. Then you will avoid this problem in total. So that's a small tip to make your combine distribution better. It will not make it easier to get through with the drill and so on, but it will at least, on your long term, you will have your organic matter distributed more even. So take that one along. That's a small advice there. Another advice, sharpen your knives on the chopper. Every 200 hectare approximately. Boring job, but it's really, really important to get the good job going here with the drilling. Usually chop it well. With the chopping we can steer a few parameters. So if we do longer and shorter and so on, but usually to make an as easy drilling as possible, short chopping length. That's important there. And when we distribute straw, it's not that easy after the combine has gone. As soon as you have passed here with a track or a wheel or so, it gets harder to distribute. So anything after the combine passes basically is more difficult with the tillage. So usually, if you have it once in the soil, it gets also more difficult. So that's a trick. When you have the short chop straw, it falls through better. So, and that makes it a little bit easier to distribute as well. So, but if you want to go with a straw harrow, for example, get intensity, many rows. If you go many times, go the same direction, because then you distribute. If you start to go 1 time this time and the second time that, and one, so then you will bring it one direction and then back again. So that's not the way to go to get an even straw distribution. And you can go a little bit outside the system. If we look at what we want to achieve here, we want to achieve a top layer of soil that is, we're getting more organic matter. We don't want to mix that layer. But we can, in order to achieve a little bit more safer, less yield variation, we can add a little bit of ultra-shallow tillage into our no-till, so to say. This way we can chop up the straw, we can get the breakdown going better, we can reduce the slug pressure as well. So there are many good things you can do with very shallow tillage, and still you don't disturb any of the earthworms, you don't disturb the structure of the soil. So that's the key here. We do a compromise, but we still keep the main targets intact. And that's the key thing here to do that. So, and Here with the cross-cutter disc, there are two different disc types available. One is full disc here, straight, and the second, it has cutouts here. And the cutouts, the only thing they do basically is they reduce the amount of steel that's on the ground at one single time. And therefore, the weight is distributed on less area here, and means you can press it down a little bit more, so it enters better in hard conditions. So that's why we have the cross-cutter disc aggressive here. The difference between these two here is this one is a carrier XL, and this one the normal carrier. So it's a little bit the size difference simply. And lately we also introduced the 3-rows cross-cutter disc, so to increase the intensity even further. So, and that's always a benefit when we're doing very, very little. We want to do maximum amount in one single pass. So the difference compared to a normal cross-cutter disc is basically the overlap here. So here we have a certain amount of overlap. With the 3 rows, we do more. So we can get the same result by reducing the working depth a little bit further even. So, but intensity is generally good. The disc is about 11.5 centimeters. We angle it, so therefore it's actually working more than it's actually working with there. So if you wonder how it's functioning. If you have 2 rows of discs, you can also add a front tool. So you can distribute a little bit of straw. You can also increase the intensity here with a cross-cutting knife to it. So that's a possibility as well. Not with the 3-row. If you are working with disc seeding, this little ultra-shell tillage can help you prevent a lot of problems. That you have less problems with hairpinning, that you are having too little fine tilth here. Also, if you are in a bit heavier soil, that the sun can open up the crack afterwards. You will not have that problem if you have a lot of fine tilth to cover. Or also that you can bake up the sides here so they get hard. And also then they can get problems that the water will not escape. So all these things can be reduce these problems by using a little bit of ultra-shell tillage. If we look then a little bit at seed placement and emergence, when I'm in a system where I have problems with hairpinning, either I have to clean the row before, or I have to cut through the row before, or I can use a tine, so to say, that also cleans the row before. That's a possibility. Soil types and conditions. So here we have often compactions, hard soil, wet soil. We have uneven fields as well that we need to handle. And when we're looking at it overall, we need to look at biopores. That's the thing when we don't have steel, we need to work with nature. So that has to be our main focus here. How do we build biopores? It's with roots. I mentioned cover crops before. We want to look at cover crop mixtures because that's how to maximize biomass production. That's how to maximize the use from the cover crops as well. Some part of the field will have an excess of nitrogen maybe. Other parts will have too little nitrogen. Different plants will thrive in this different part of the field, but they will eventually make sure to use the available resources optimal. So that's a big thing there. You can, if you have a problem that the soils are settling after a while, which can be after wet years, for example, you can go through with a little bit of subsoiling or something that will loosen up that part. But make sure whatever you do to loosen the soil to get roots in there afterwards as well. The roots will act like baking paper a little bit when they are decomposing, so they keep the soil open afterwards as well. So that's important to keep in mind. And a little bit to understand fully what we're doing when we're going no-till. Those of you who started with the plow, we had a lot of pores in the soil. So this is an X-ray of pores that were made after the after tillage, and here you can see it's quite a few pores. But they also said, okay, can we find the biopores as well. And yes, it was possible to extract those, and they have a little bit different shapes. So therefore, we can take those and see what are nature biopores. There are not so many when I plow. Going into minimum tillage, so with cultivator, we have still quite a few pores, but what we see here, compared to here, is that we increase the amount of biopores quite a bit. How do we do that? That's here we're increasing the amount of earthworms. That's our working agent that helps us to increase here when we change the system. So you often hear about the earthworm, they are great and everything. This is why it's really, they are key components in order to loosen our soils. So, so therefore, when we're moving over to a no-till condition, we have no metal who can help us here to do any of the biopores. So we are completely depending on nature. So these guys get even more important, but also another working agent are live roots. So that we always have, that's why we have the green coverage as one of the principles of conservation agriculture, just so that we can get those biopores created and maintained all the time as well. So, but this is a good picture just to understand the system and why it is so important with green coverage, why earthworms are so important, because they are key components really. And we need to see also how to create those biopores. Deep roots are always good. We can have also roots that are plants that are helping earthworm populations. Oilseed rape is wonderful for earthworms. They will increase quite a bit like that. Then we can also see that if we are in a troublesome soil, we may have to take a couple of years with really strong rooting crops. That's important. So we also need to work a lot with drainage. That's also a key thing to manage to get the structure going. If we have waterlogged soil, this will be very difficult for the roots, because the roots needs to breathe. All these are processes that requires oxygen as well. If we have too high water level, we will not be able to get the roots to grow. We will not get the earthworms in there. So consider this to be also a key element in the no-till, to have everything properly drained. That's the only way you can manage to get your best yields out of your fields here. So keep that in mind. So we cannot replace this with the roots. That's impossible. We will improve structure and everything like that, certainly, but we can never replace a good drainage that keeps the field dry. That's impossible with the roots. If we look at compactions, never save on tires. There are many new tires development and so on that are improving quite a bit, so we can get as low pressure as possible. I'm very happy also that many tractor manufacturers are starting to get the tire regulation kits in the price list as well. They lived for 15, 20 years in different small workshops where you had to buy special solutions and so on. That could never grow big. It's only when you have the responsibility right from manufacturer that this can grow to something bigger. And you can reduce compaction also with the CTF. We saw in the first years of the CTF that was really religious, only driving the tracks, only do like this, and everything will work perfectly fine. Once it was worked with a few years, then it started to establish more of a CTF light, where we can do some passes in the different direction, where we don't cause damages, or when we want to distribute straw and so on. So that's been important, and keep the damaging traffic in lanes. So that's a CTF light now. And that's a little bit, you will see a little bit during this presentation, what I want to bring to you is a non-religious conservation agriculture, or no-till, where we don't just stick to one dogma, but we can say if we need to, we can step off the track a little bit here or to that direction, but we have the target is set, but we do what's necessary. That's exactly what happened here, and that's usually after a while. When new things are coming, after a while, they get more pragmatic. And where you really see how can you use them the best way. Back to the earthworms, I think sometimes when you do no-till, you feel nothing is happening. Start in different soil types and fields and do a little bit of earthworm counting. Take one shovel full and count what you find there in that shovel. That way you can also see progress beneath the surface. And earthworms are a very, very good health indicator. We can, of course, start to count bacteria and everything like that, but earthworms, if you have good earthworm population, the other things are also coming. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. Why make it more complicated, so to say? And moving on to loosening without mixing. I mentioned before that we want to keep a layer up here that we're working up organic matter in the topsoil. And this layer is really important to us. Therefore, we don't want to bring up this soil here once again, because that's a costly layer to create. It's a lot of money involved in that. We'll come back to that later. But keep this soil where it is. Keep it green up here. That's important to keep in mind. You can go either with if you have a problem with compaction, maybe only your headlands, you can go with a subsoiler. You can look at, if you have a cultivator, I would recommend instead to put on some points like this that does not mix the soil, only cut through, just like that. Then you can fix your problems without going away too far from your main path, so to say. So on hard ground, we sometimes need to roll a little bit. Takes away problems with slugs, for example. Press down stones. If you work with a tine drill, stones can be a problem a little bit. Roller, I think, is a good insurance in any farm. It helps to prevent some problems, so it's a cheap path to do, definitely. And uneven fields, here you come back to the same solution, more or less, like we spoke about before. We go shallow, we go with high intensity, but we don't go deeper than your organic matter layer that you created. Very important. And then you can do a leveling. You can also distribute your straw a little bit better as well. But this is only when you have a problem, so to say, like after the combine. When you have a wet year, then this works perfect to go on there. And if we have weeds, that's always an interesting theme that comes up for everyone when you have no-till. And for everyone who is not doing no-till, they have very clear understanding of that the weeds increase like this. And many things may probably come from the history, because when the no-till started 60s, 70s, it was promoted heavily by chemistry companies. Because they saw an opportunity, hey, if the guys will not plow anymore, we can sell more chemistry to them, which is good for our wallet. And yeah, so this is how it started, and that's bitten into the minds of many people that no-till or conservation ag means a lot more weed problems. But here it's important to have a strategy. To understand also, we are changing now we are not moving the seed bank, weed seed bank in the soil anymore. We only work with what's coming down from above. So that changes the weed types completely. Grass weeds tend to decrease a little bit. So we should simply be aware, and here you may be forced to be a bit more interested in your weeds and to know them, what's coming, what's going down, what's going up, how to fight them the best way. We need to focus more. The less we do in the soil, the more the crop rotation is important. I always had some interesting meetings in England and in Germany, where there is big problems with weed blackgrass. And they are working with less intensity in the drilling. They are working with the later drilling. They are doing this and this and that. But they refuse to bring this into play. And I tell them, but you are just moving your problems 1 year, 2 years, 3 years ahead of you. Eventually you have to do this. Yes, but the calculation, yes. But you're now economist and you're not thinking farmer, so long term, so to say. We have no way to get around this. And if we want to get a good, proper weed management going, I think this is a key thing to think about there. And try to reduce fungicides. We also need our fungi to break down our residues on the top. So that's important. Reduce insecticides. We need our good insects to help us to fight others as well. We have a lot of seed predations by insects, for example. So they eat volunteer seeds that are left on the surface. We don't want to kill them either. So try to work with the nature and not so much against it. That's a good thing there to keep in mind. Try to use leaf active agents so you don't work too much in the soil with the agents. That can also be a good tip here. Slugs. This is in any type of reduced tillage, slugs will be a theme sooner or later. If we have wet years, it will be sooner, dry years a little bit later. But they will come eventually. And here, once again, uniform spreading of residues is a key thing, not to give the slugs too many places to live. We can work chemically with lime. We, of course, have the slug pellets. With these slugs, it's a little bit like the weeds. We need to have a toolbox, and we need to use different tools to get the amount of slugs down to a level where we can manage them decently. They will not disappear, but we simply need to press them, and there will never be enough with only putting some lime on. There will never be enough with only some slug pellets. But when you use a lot of different measures, you can do more with them. You can also, if you use the ultra-shell tillage already for other things, you may want to consider to go nights. When you go by night, the slugs are out there, and you can kill a lot more of them. If you have a cover crop, you may want to break your cover crop on the frost. You can get slug eggs. So those are another couple of tools, so to say. So be aware that you need many things to fight slugs. They will not disappear tomorrow just because we wish them to, or we do one thing. Some countries we see also cycles of field mice coming and going, and there we need to work preventive as well. Very much is about enabling the birds to get the mice, so keeping your stubble short. You can roll the stubble as well, so that they have no place to hide. Also here, distribution is important of the residues. Make sure you have spots where the birds can sit, so that they have a long time to feed on the mice. Some countries is allowed to put mice poison in. I know Germany using that when they have a bad year. But the prevention is things we need to work with all the time, every year. And if we look into nutrient management issues, then so there we go. We need to be aware then, if we are having all our residues in the same horizon as the seed, we risk to have immobilization of the residues. And this means that when the residues need to be broken down, they do require a lot of nitrogen and oxygen to do this breakdown. This nitrogen does not disappear, it's only borrowed, taken away from us. But that's exactly when we want our plants to take up nitrogen. Therefore, to avoid this 4 to 8 weeks here, we do need to fertilize together with the seed. That's important part to do that. And how long, how much we'll feel this depends a little bit on what type of crop we have. Here we'll go quicker, here we'll go a lot longer, this immobilization. So the quota of nitrogen to carbon. You do need to, when you're building up this top layer here, you must add more nitrogen, because this is organic matter, and organic matter is built up on nitrogen. So there is a cost, and that's why you need to understand the system thinking, why you should not mix down that layer later, because then you're starting all over again and all over again. So that's a key thing to keep in mind. But it has a cost, and it's worth protecting as well once you have it up there. One thing to think maybe about there, interesting thought, I think, how do we fertilize that? Maybe it's better to fertilize through the layer, because when we put fertilizer on that layer, we are also basically breaking down part of it. Would be interesting to see if it would work better with spike wheels, where you put the fertilizer down below to the wheels. The Americans often use this type of fertilization kits. This is for liquid, but I think I've seen some for granular fertilizer as well, where you really slice it into the living crop. That's quite interesting. You can, of course, work with sprayers, but that's more the topping fertilizer. It's not the big amounts there. But I think that's things to think about and consider when you're having this layer perfectly built up. How do you want to work with it? Wet years is basically one of the big challenges in all no-till, because to manage to, or to very much seeding, to manage to get a good result, we need to close the seed slot in a proper way. But if we have a really wet soil, it smears, and it doesn't give good seed-to-soil contact. So, so this makes it very, very difficult to get a good job done there. So should be a little bit dry. We should drill into moisture. That's where we want to place the seed, of course, but the surface is better to do when it's dry. And here it's getting real tough. First, of course, drainage is the key thing. Going back to that again, when we have wet years, we can reduce the impact of them by draining. We can reduce the amount of water in the growth horizon with cover crops. They will suck it up a little bit too. So those are ways to do it. We can do a little bit of tillage as well, to shallow tillage, to get the soil a little bit drying up as well. We can do like work with a tine drill also. That's a certain amount of tilled ground as well to dry it up. So, but wet years and climate are more problematic than when we have a drier. But to summarize a little bit, I think there are many possibilities if we do the no-till, and if we do it right, we do have the possibility to reduce a lot of the cost. We do have the possibilities to get more resilient to yearly variations in weather, so that our yields could become more stable. And I think if we maintain the target that our yield should stay high, and even when we do this, I think that's a really nice key, and we can then achieve a lot of this. But we need to be aware of the system, so to say, once again. So thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, hello everybody. So, my name is Martin. I'm a farmer from Sweden, and I'm very grateful to be here today. I'm not here to talk to you or tell you what to do. I'm only here to tell you what we've been doing on my farm, what ways we are thinking, what we did, and what we're going to do in the future, maybe. And hopefully, some of these things will be interesting for you to go home and practice on your own farms. So I think we're gonna start by talking a little bit what we've been doing up till 2016, because 2016 is kind of the year zero on our farm. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what we've been doing since then, and maybe a little bit about what we are heading up to in the future. So this is our farm. My family came to the farm in the year of 1742. We have had arable farming on the farm since the start. We had some milking cows up until the 1950s. We had some beef production still in the 1960s. And since then, it's all been about arable farming. I'm the 9th generation farmer in my family on this farm. And that's actually one of the key factors of why we're doing things the way we are today. Because these 9 generation, they don't weigh me down at all. They kind of lift me up and looking ahead a bit more. So today we farm about 440 hectares of arable land. The farm is situated in the very southwest of Sweden. We are very close to Denmark. It's only a 20-minute ferry ride over to Denmark. The soils are about 5 to 22% clay. And the average yields is about 8.5 tons of wheat, 5.8 tons of spring oats, 6.3 tons of spring barley, about 3.8 tons of oilseed rape. So up until 2016, we were a pretty conventional farm. We managed about 650 hectares at the time. We were 3 employees on the farm. I'm one of them, my father's one of them, and then we had 1 full-time employee as well, and then additional help from neighbors during the harvest. We grew winter wheat, spring oats, spring barley, winter oilseed rape, sugar beets, and also some red fesk, grass seed production, spinach, parsley, and carrots, and so on. So a lot of tillage in different ways, a lot of traffic, and a lot of hours in the field. My thoughts in 2016 and the years up to 2016 were, when I was about to take over the management of the farm, was that we had a problem in all agriculture in Sweden with low profit. And we had to, every farm in every operation try to cut costs to be more efficient, to make some money. We also saw we had a big problem with climate change and the increase of hot weather, especially. We had longer periods of drought and longer periods of rain. And we had some positive proof of global warming. This is one proof that it's getting hotter each year. This is just up to 2006, so we'll see what's happening in the future, maybe. And also I had some thoughts about my own family, because I had 2 small children. I had a father getting older, so I didn't want to miss out on my children growing up by working too much. So we're trying to find some ways to do less hours in the fields. And also, looking back, every time there was a new tractor on the farm, it was a bit bigger than the year before, or the one before. That means we could have some bigger tools behind the tractor, and we could actually choose when to go on the field by our own choosing, and not by the weather or the soils telling us when it should be traffic on the field. And that's a disadvantage, of course. In some case, it would be better if we just had 2-wheel drive on our tractor still, because then the soil will tell us when to stay home instead of just going when we want it. And we could also see every year we got varieties that were 2-3% better than the varieties we used last year or the year before. But the yields didn't go up with 1 or 2 or 3% each year. That means in some way I'm doing something worse on my farm by 2-3% each year if the yields don't follow the variety evolvement. And why is that? So I felt a little bit like we were stuck in a conventional treadmill, and I'm thinking about 30 years ahead when I will manage the farm. If I plow, cultivate, seed, and harvest for 30 years, in what way have I helped building for the following generations? Is there an alternative? Can I do it in any other way? So we had a possibility to visit some other farmers in other countries. We visited Tony Reynolds in Great Britain. We visited Sarah Singla in France, and Søren Ilse is a Danish farmer. They are all gurus in the conservation agriculture community. And what they've all been doing together is thinking outside the box, trying something new and making it work on their farm. And in some cases, they had worse conditions than we have. So we're thinking, if they can, why shouldn't we? So we came home with these ideas and trying to think different. And also, this is a guy thinking a lot in the past. He has some quotes that still help me on my farm. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. So if we want to change something, we have to think differently. And this is the same idea. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So if I want to change, I cannot continue in the same way I did, because I will not get any change. And trying something new, it's also good to stay away from negative people. They tend to have a problem for every solution. So we're going to try to look ahead and not look as much backwards. So our motto on my farm today is that I wish to manage the soil in such a way that it will be possible to grow healthy crops here for many generations to come. And in doing so, we have three key pillars to build this on. I want to produce food. That's the most important part. That's the most found reason for being a farmer in the first place. We want to produce food. Also, I want to improve soil health on my farm. The soil is the most important tool for producing food, so therefore I want to improve the soil health. I also want to safeguard the environment and the climate impact that we do on our farm. And looking at these three, the system that includes these in the best possible way in my conditions is conservation agriculture. Most of you probably know this already, but the conservation agriculture is built up on three fundamental pillars. It's all about diversity in crop rotation, it's about living roots all year round, and it's about minimum disturbance. And these principles are the same all over the world, but the implementation of the principles has to be adapted on local conditions, soil health, compaction issues, and crop rotation, and so on. So that's the difficult part. And for us, adaptation on my farm, in 2016, we sold Väderstad Spirit seeder. We sold a tine harrow, NZ aggressive, and we sold a plow, we sold a cultivator, and then instead we bought a Väderstad Seed Hawk. We found one very nearby my farm, 3 years old, perfect. And then we bought a couple of years used Claydon seed harrow as well, a straw harrow. We had a carrier on the farm. We changed the discs to cross-cutter discs instead to be able to go very shallow when we needed. And adaptation is also about this. Just a few weeks ago, I was in Tallinn listening to an Australian farmer, Tom Robinson, and he had a quote, he said, "Do less harm." And this is actually what it's all about. I want to produce as much food as possible, the highest yield possible, but with the less input. If the input is too low, I will use yield, and then we will have to do some more to stay up with the highest yield possible. And to do so, we have to have every tool in the toolbox. So I can go mechanical if that's the best way to do. I can go chemical if that's the best way to do. But I want the biggest toolbox possible, so I can choose what makes less harm. So diversity in crop rotation. For us, it's all about the balance between autumn-seeded and spring-seeded crops. We try to grow crops from different families, and we never see the same variety or crop 2 years in a row. For example, winter wheat is never followed by winter wheat. The one exception is grass seed production, because that's the 2-year harvest crop. And if we manage this balance, it's a natural way to minimize the problem with weeds, minimize the problem with insects and fungi. So now we work with a 7-year crop rotation on my farm. The first year we seed spring barley. At the same time we interseed our grass seed. This year it's tall fesk, the variety. We harvest the spring barley in August, and then the grass seed can grow back, and we will harvest the grass seed on year 2. Remove the straw. We bale the straw, and we bring it to our farm, and we use the straw for our straw heater on the farm, for warming up buildings and warming up and drying our yield on the farm with the straw. And then the tall fesk can grow back for the 3rd year, and we can harvest it again, bringing the straw back to the farm once more. And then after this year, we seed winter oilseed rape. We use GPS RTK on our tractors, and that gives us the possibility to move between the rows. So we can seed, when it works, we can seed the oilseed rape in between the rows of the grass seed. And that gives us the possibility to have a very good ground cover of residue. And that also means there's no place for weeds to grow back. And when we get this thing working, we can also use some companion crops with the oilseed rape. And that means that we mix with the seed. We can mix, for example, buckwheat, Alexandrine clover, or blue lupin. It can look a bit like this. And this is the mix we used in 2018. And it looks like very little rapeseed in the mix, but it's actually pretty much. We seed about 40 plants per square meter. And the companion crops, they will grow with the rapeseed in the autumn, and then they will naturally be killed by winter. So they will help picking up NPK and other nutrients in the autumn that the rapeseed can't pick up. They will help feed the mycorrhiza. The oilseed rape can't do that either. So they help in a lot of ways. They're also a big bonus for pollinators. This picture is from the middle of October, and there were bees all over the field. That's a very nice effect as well, that we aren't used to that. So it looks a bit scary at first, but you have to stay strong until winter, and then in the spring there will only be oilseed rape in the field. And this is, of course, possible with the great coverage of the soil with residues, because the weeds can't be treated in the normal way in the autumn. So this is another example of what we've been doing. In 2024, we only had one mix with buckwheat and one mix with Alexandrine clover. And of course, if I do get a lot of weeds in the field after seeding, I will probably have to terminate the weeds, and by doing so, I will also terminate the companion crops. So in these two cases, it's after winter wheat, and that's a bit more tricky. If I can seed it after grass seed in between, there will be no weeds in the autumn. So after the winter wheat, we seed, after the oilseed rape, we seed winter wheat. And then after the winter wheat, we seed companion crops on the fields. And this is one method of doing so, in interseeding winter wheat into interseeding cover crops into the winter wheat in the spring. And I will come back to that a little bit later. After the winter wheat, we seed spring oats. And this is also a nice visual effect. We have a lot of birds when seeding. And that means there's a lot of earthworms in our fields. And hopefully they won't kill them all, but it's a good indicator that there's a lot of life in the soil. After the spring oats, we seed winter wheat again. And this is an example of moving and seeding in between the old rows. So this is winter wheat, and in between there's the spring oat stubble. So the next pillar is living roots all year round, and on my farm we try to have 100% of our fields covered and green in the autumn. That means we seed cover crops in all fields that will be seeded in the next spring. And the number 3 is the minimum disturbance. For us, we try that after harvest, we go with the straw harrow as fast as possible, as soon as possible. And the best case is like this, that we can chase the combine with the straw harrow, because timing is very crucial. As Magnus said, residue and straw management is very important in this system. And coming with the straw harrow directly after the combine means that the stubble will be very fluffy and laying on top. And then it will be much more easy to handle in the future than letting it go down. There's also a big difference in moist in the topsoil if I go the same day or within 8 hours than if I wait 2 or 3 days. It will be very dry and the weeds won't germinate until I get any rain in the field. So if I go directly, a much higher percentage of the weeds will germinate, and then I can manage them going forward. I also reduce slug pressure by doing this. And on the fields I seed cover crops is the same principle, as soon as possible. So there are some early benefits in the system. We can see we have an increasing biodiversity on our land. We see a lot more earthworms in the soil. We see hares and pheasants and larks and lapwings. And we see beetles and spiders increasing as well. And the beetles and the spiders are great for slug pressure, keeping that down. I have no great calculations on how many beetles I need per slug, but hopefully enough. One of the earliest advantages of the system is the infiltration capacity. In just 1 or 2 years, you can see when we have heavy rain, the risk of water runoff from the field is very low when we keep a good residue in the topsoil and something growing. The water will infiltrate where it lands. And on the other hand, when we get a dry period, we have the capillarity effect still nurturing the roots and the plants with some water. When I stop cultivating the fields, I get much more days in a year where I can traffic the field without risking of heavy compaction. It's a lot like going onto the lawn, the grass lawn. After 20 millimeters of rain in the night, we can still go out with low shoes. If we go into the flowering garden and the bare soil, we will get mud on our feet. So that's the difference. If we get a good amount of roots and stubble working with the soil stays more stable. Reducing CO2 in the atmosphere is very trendy right now, all over Europe, all over the world. And of course, this system helps as well. A more percentage of green, more days with green helps, of course, but this is a bonus. This is not something that is on top of our agenda. It's just a bonus with the system. We can reduce labor cost because we have removed all the heavy cultivation, the plowing, the cultivation that takes a lot of energy, a lot of time, and reduced it with the straw harrow, for example, 7.5 meters wide and going 20-25 kilometers an hour. You're very efficient. We also have the possibility to reduce fuel, chemicals, and fertilizers. Not always, but in the best cases. It's not uncommon to see spider webs on top of the filling of the diesel on the tractor because we don't open it as much anymore. The fuel consumption has dropped more than 50% than it was before. And that's, of course, with the heavy cultivation taking a lot of energy. When we get the ground coverage, we can reduce the chemical use as well. And then the cover crops is a very important nutrient bank for us. If we get a cover crop growing waist high in autumn, I can reduce about between 20 and 50 kilos of N applied on the spring crops the following year without any drop in yield. There's also, of course, disadvantages. The biggest change that has to be done is the transformation between your ears. The mindset is totally different. Your neighbors might think you're crazy at first. They drive by your fields and it looks like you've been doing nothing. But that's also why it's so important to go out in the fields and looking down in the fields. Because you see a lot of stubble, you see a lot of residue, but when you go out there, you can see new green rows coming to life. And also, of course, when we remove the plow or the cultivator from the farm, we also take away chances to just turn the page and start over. So we can see what we've been doing the year before and the year before. So it's a lot more about timing and planning in what you do. All the traffic in the field stay together, and if you sit on the combine, you have to be thinking about the guy's going to see the field or straw harrow the field. So it's all about the system thinking in all the work we do. Also, there's no blueprint. We can't copy what the neighbor is doing. Many of the things we might copy, but we have to adapt them to our own conditions. And we have to try out what works on my farm and what doesn't. And a very important thing in all this is you have to believe in yourself. Believe in your system, believe in yourself. If I don't believe that this is going to work, the chances of it working drops radically. If I'm not satisfied with my work, I won't do a good job either. So if I talk to a neighbor and he says I have to plow my fields, otherwise I won't get a big yield, probably he should still plow his field, because when he plows really good and does a very good job. It's not until you think that there's an alternative that will work just as good that there's a big chance it will as well. So believe in yourself and believe in your system. And that's also why it's so important to not try new things in the wrong conditions. If I'm going to try out new rubber boots, it's probably a bad idea to go a marathon. I will come to the conclusion that rubber boots is not for me. And in the same way, if I want to try a new crop, I should be doing it in the best possible conditions. So take the best field, divide it in half, do as you normally do, and try something new in the other half. Then you will evaluate in the right conditions. When I went to school, I had a teacher telling me a story about a young farmer, enthusiastic, coming home from school and telling his old father, I want to try a new crop. And the father said, yeah, sure, try it behind the forest. on that little field where nothing grows ever, and he does. And then next year there's no harvest at all, and the father said, I told you, let's do what we did last year. So that's not a good way going forward. You have to try new things in the best possible conditions. So it's all about trial and error. One of the difficult things about going into this system is that we haven't had any advisory organizations to help us, and we haven't had the science to back us up in Sweden. I'm fortunate enough to be very close to Denmark, and Denmark is about 10 years ahead of us with conservation agriculture and cover crops. And I have an advisor coming over to my farm 7 or 8 times a year, helping me with the system thinking and planning ahead. So that helps a lot, and we do a lot of trials on our farm to try out things in our own conditions. This is a picture of seeding cover crops after harvest. The part on the left is seeded, and the part on the right is not seeded yet. So this is a good example of when it works well. The tine goes between the old stubble rows, and there's not very much cultivation done in the field at all. This is the same effect. The field was harvested in the afternoon, and then in the evening we seeded cover crops. So it's actually year 2 when you can evaluate this function. So you have to believe in the system and stay strong. This is 12 days later. In this case, it's oilseed radish growing in between the stubble rows. We have some very important parts on our farm. These are the 3 most important. Of course, we have the seed tine, we have the straw harrow tine as well, but the most important one is the knives in the chopper of the combine, because managing straw is so crucial to making it work. We can leave stubble we have 25 centimeters of row spacing on our SeedHawk seeder. That means we can have about 20 to 25 centimeters of straw still standing in the field without too much shadow of the new crop when I seed in between. So the row spacing and the straw length can be the same. If you have a narrower row spacing, you have to have shorter straw. But the straw still standing is no problem in managing the straw with the straw harrow or the seeder, because it's still stuck with the roots. So it's just a loose straw that I have to manage with the seeder. So 20-25 centimeters, and then the rest should be short chopped, not to get stuck in the seeder. That's very important. This is our 2 examples of what we've been doing and the effect of some things. Fertilizer effect, the picture on the left. This is a case where we've seeded winter wheat in end of September, and we seeded it with the fertilizer called NS. It's an ammonium sulfate, 21 N and 24 S. It has the effect that it lowers the pH in the seeding row, and that's important on my farm because we have a very manganese sufficient soil. So the Mn ratio is very low. If I don't do this on this part, I have to go spraying Mn in the spring 3 times to get the harvest at all. But in placing fertilizer in September, we can go spraying 1 time in the spring instead. But you can see the difference with the 25 centimeters row spacing from 25 centimeter wheat, and this just with no fertilizer, it almost doesn't grow at all. This effect is another thing. We had some blockage in the seeding tube, seeding spring barley. We still placed fertilizer down in the row, so we helped the weed bank grow pretty good. And there are 2 effects that are very visible in this picture. One is that the crop suppresses weeds pretty good. Not in this case, but we also see that in between the rows there are almost no weeds. But the weed bank is probably just the same in between the rows as in the row. The SeedHawk tine, it mixes the soil of about 20% of the surface, and 80% between the rows is not touched while seeding. So if I go with glyphosate, and then with the SeedHawk, it's just 20% of the seed bank in the top 5 centimeter soil where the tine is going that I wake up during seeding. The other 80% is not woken. So that helps suppress weeds in a very natural and good way. So I do believe every soil has to be tilled in some way and cultivated. If I don't do it by steel, it's very much important that we do it with roots and biology instead. And that's where the cover crops comes in. They're very crucial to making this system work. They have a lot of benefits, and to get as many benefits as possible, I do believe we have to go with great mixes. If we go monoculture, we can just get one big effect. It will probably work for 70–80% of the field, but there are some areas where this variety doesn't help, and then that's where we should have the blend instead. So in a rich blend, we always get something growing in every part of the field. And it's just like thinking, I think in middle school I learned that for my stomach and for my well-being I have to eat food, a variation of food, and it's just the same thinking about the soil. If I feed the soil with different varieties, different crops, different species, it will be more healthy than just going monoculture. So we've tried out 2 different strategies in planting cover crops, interseeding in the spring or seeding after harvest. So when interseeding in the spring, we move with a SeedHawk and we can seed in between the rows of the winter wheat. We do that in middle or late April, just before the wheat starts to grow high. And in doing so, we have to choose varieties that stay close to the ground, because I don't want to come with the combine in August harvesting a mixture of wheat and other crops, of cover crops. So the cover crops that seeded in the spring has to stay very low to the ground. So we tried with white clover, chicory, and hop alfalfa, for example, and they stay very low, and then after harvest they get the light and they start growing. So this is what it looked like in 2021. We seeded some hop alfalfa, we seeded some white clover, and then a mix of chicory, white clover, and hop alfalfa. This picture is from October, and this was not a very good year for us growing these crops, because we had 3 weeks of dry period in the end of May and the beginning of June. And what's happened then is that the winter wheat roots that have been growing for half a year, they're down 1.5 meters, and the roots of the cover crops are just in the top soil. So that when it gets dry, the winter wheat takes all the moist and the cover crops die off. So that's the big risk of seeding in the spring. We have to get the moist and the weather with us during the summer. These are 2 different years. In 2020, we did get the rain in May and June, and after harvest, the cover crops were very good, just the way we want them. And then the year after, when we had some dry periods, it's not the same effect at all. But it's a possibility to interseed in the spring. What we have to acknowledge is that at this time, when I interseed the cover crops, I have to be sure that there are no big weed issues in the field, no weed problems in the field. So I have to optimize the autumn spraying, weed treatment, and maybe an early appliance in the spring, and then if possible we can do this way. Because after seeding, I can't go with any more weed treatment without killing off the cover crops as well. And therefore, this is still the main plan for me. About 90–95% of my farm I seed cover crops after harvest. I go as fast as possible after harvest, after the combine. Every day counts. So in the best cases, we can start harvesting the winter wheat in the end of July, and then I start seeding directly. If we harvest on a Thursday, and I can seed on Friday, but I wait until Saturday. That 1 day later seeding cover crops is just the same as 1 week in August or the whole month of September in growing capacity. So every day is so crucial, and that's why on my farm we only use the varieties that are the fastest to harvest, so the earliest harvest varieties in winter wheat. We lose about 200–300 kilos per hectare from the best varieties of winter wheat, but we win 1–1.5 week earlier seeding cover crops. And the earlier seeded cover crops helps me for a better crop rotation for at least 5 more years to come. If I get a great cover crop, that helps me 5 years. If I get a little cover crops, that maybe helps me 1 or 2 years. So the cover crop seeding is very important on the farm. This is another case of 2 years with a different result. It's the same mix. In 2017, we had cold weather, a lot of rain in autumn, and then the year after we had a very warm summer, a great establishment, warm weather all autumn, and this one is just stubble high. There's really no great effect of roots. In the other one, that's waist high, and probably roots just as deep. And that's why this cover crop is like trying to go deep cultivation with a straw harrow. That doesn't work at all. No great effect. And this can replace the cultivation of a plow in building up structure in the soil. These are 3 examples of the mixes we've been using for a couple of years. In 2021, prices were very high. It was very difficult to get a lot of varieties of cover crops. So we ended up with just 3 varieties in the mix. And then it got better in 2022 and 2024. And I want to use more species. So that this is a good mix for us. But the most important thing is to see them early. We've been also on a conservation agriculture farm. When you have a tine drill, you wish you had a disc drill. And in the cases you have a disc drill, you wish you had a tine drill. So in 2022, we got the opportunity to get a horse avatar on the farm as well as the SeedHawk. And the plan was to, for a couple of years, evaluate the both and see what type of machine we shall use in the future. We started with the autumn seeding in 2022 a lot with the horse avatar and the disc drill, and we were very satisfied with the result, thinking this might be the way forward. We cultivate the soil and we touch the soil a lot less than with the SeedHawk, and that we thought that would be a good way to go forward. So in the spring in 2023, we seeded almost all crops with the disc drill, and we seeded some fields with the SeedHawk just to compare. This field was 40 hectares. We divided the field in 2. We seeded half with SeedHawk and half with horse avatar. it looked very good from the start. You can see the row spacing is 25 centimeters with the SeedHawk, and it's 16.7 centimeters with the disc drill. In the middle of the summer, you can still see the wider row spacing and a little bit error between the rows in the SeedHawk plot, and almost even stand in the disc half. And then this picture is just the same day as we started harvesting. It looks the same. I thought this is no different at all. We can go with either machine. I wasn't on the combine myself. It wasn't until in September when I looked at the yield map that I was a bit surprised with the result. So this is the field. This blue line on the right is where we divided, and the SeedHawk seeded the upper half and the Avatar seeded the lower half. We also divided another part of the field with SeedHawk on the right and Avatar on the left. And approximately 1 to 1.5 tons difference with better yield after the SeedHawk in this case. There's a very red plot in the bottom, and that's what's happening if we go home in the evening and coming to the field too early the day after, with a lot of moist in the field and a lower result. But approximately 1.5 tons. So that we thought, okay, this is just one result, 1 year, that doesn't count. We have to try this again to get some more knowledge. So we tried the next year with spring oats and spring barley. For spring barley, we had a field where we used glyphosate, and then we divided the field in 4 different plots. One plot was cultivated at 6 centimeters depth, and one plot with 10 centimeters depth. And then one plot was with the carrier disc drill, cross-cutter disc, and one plot was no-till. And we seeded, so we cultivated in this direction, and then we seeded half the plots with SeedHawk and half the plots with Avatar. This is a picture of seeding with the SeedHawk in the cultivated plot. The green area here is winter wheat, so we're gonna look beyond that. But these are the 4 plots we used. So with the no-till, with the carrier, with the cultivator 6 centimeters and cultivator 10 centimeters. No real difference in, this is in the 2nd of May. In the 25th of May, we also see there's a red plot here, and that was actually some bird issue on the field. We had some geese landing there for a few days, so that's the issue there. But when we look at the yield map, no, we'll take this before. We also did some calculations in the field. We looked at the number of tillers, we looked at biomass per square meter, we looked at biomass coverage ratio, and we looked at number of weeds. And I'm just going to show you this one, because the number of weeds increasing from no-till to deep cultivation with both the SeedHawk and the disc drill. And that helps us acknowledge that with no-till we wake up a lot less weeds than we do when we cultivate. And in this case, with 10 centimeters cultivation, I got some weeds growing that I hadn't been seeing for almost 10 years in the field. So they were still there, but if we cultivate and we bring them up to the surface, they will start growing again. So reducing the weed seed bank is very crucial in going no-till. This is the yield map, and actually we can summarize this by this gave us no clue whatsoever. There was no significant differences in yield in this field and the different plots. But when I sat on the combine, I could sense that in the no-till plot, the SeedHawk was a bit better, and in the carrier plot, they were equal, and then in the cultivated areas, the disc drill was a bit better. And the conclusion could be that the row spacing has some issues with this, because especially spring barley or spring wheat is very sensitive to a wider row spacing. and the 16.7 centimeters on the disc drill is beneficial compared to 25 centimeters with the SeedHawk. But in the no-till plot, the little cultivation that the SeedHawk does helps counter that. We also compared with spring oats in 2024. This field was divided into 4 parts. We seeded with SeedHawk on the top field, SeedHawk on the left of the big field. On the right part of the big field, we seeded with the disc drill, as well as the little field in the very right. This yield map also shows us that there was no significant difference. So compared to the year before, with a big difference, this told us there was no difference. So the year variety is huge as well. We came to the conclusion that after a couple of years of trials with these 2 machines, we can only keep one on the farm. It's too expensive for us to have them both. We're going to continue with the SeedHawk, because the SeedHawk in our condition works in all different conditions with all crops in a better way. It's less risk. So there are some disadvantages as well as advantages with both machines. I think if we had a bigger problem with grass seeds, for example black grass, I would have chosen the disc drill instead, because in that case I don't want to wake up any weeds. So it's all about what kind of conditions you have in your farm. I do think with a disc drill you have to be more open to some type of cultivation to help getting a better seed bed before seeding. So going forward with the SeedHawk, we've been using it for a couple of years, and now this autumn we changed the tine to this twin wing instead. So instead of placing just 1 row with the fertilizer on the side, we changed the tine, so now we place 2 rows with the fertilizer beneath in the center. Before we changed on the machine, we started seeding with 1 row. So this you can see the effect of about 25 centimeters between. And then on the same field we continued after changing, and there's 2 lines, or actually today it looks like a band of 8 centimeters, 7-8 centimeters wide winter wheat row. So there's only 17 centimeters between the rows. And I think that will be beneficial for all crops actually. This is also a step forward. We want to do as little as possible, but as much as necessary. And I think going forward, planting winter oilseed rape, we're going to try to go with a subsoiler. It's a small type of subsoiler, so it only goes down 20-22 centimeters every 50 centimeters. And doing so in the beginning of August, seeding winter oilseed rape. When it's very dry, we don't destroy a lot of soil. We don't cultivate the whole soil layer, just strip drilling. And it also helps us with the rapeseed roots going directly down. And hopefully one time in the crop rotation, this will help us take another step forward. This could be a good complement to the no-till drilling crops. Magnus also told us about drainage and the importance of drainage. We have, for this year, invested in a plow for drainage, so we're going to do a lot of drainage on our own. This is the basic issue to deal with in all systems. You have to have a good drainage system. So in my farm, we're going to try to go over about 10 to 20 hectares each year on our own. And by doing it on our own, it costs about 1,500 to 2,000 euros per hectare. If I get a big firm to do it for me with a big machine and doing it all, it costs about double. So about between 3,000 and 4,000 euros per hectare. So we can reduce the cost a lot and choose the right time to do it as well. So to sum things up, now compared to 10 years ago, we look at our farm and our crops and agriculture in a very different way. We grow the soil, and it helps us to grow crops instead of just growing crops. And it's still a big fundamental for me to acknowledge that I haven't inherited the farm from my father. I'm just borrowing it from my children. So we are thinking a lot ahead all the time. So thank you very much. We just did some calculations on our farm on how many minutes and hours we did on our fields and how much diesel we consumed. So this is for oilseed rape. We start after harvest with a straw harrow. We go direct seeding. We have one without the companion crops. In this case, we have one and two weed treatments in the autumn. Then in the beginning of March, we start fertilizing. We come again with a weed treatment, sometimes when necessary. And we definitely go another one other time with fertilizer. For fungicide treatment, we go one time in the beginning of the bloom, and then one time in the end of the bloom. And we come with a combine, and we transport all the seeds away from the fields to the farm. And in average, we use 1.33 hours per hectare for growing oilseed rape, and we consume about 35.5 liters of diesel doing so. And this is the same calculations with winter wheat. We start with straw harrow. We glyphosate the field before seeding. We seed, and then in most cases we go over with a roller. If I have the time, I do it as fast as possible after seeding, because the weed treatment for us, it's an active substance that it lands as a layer on top of the soil and then managing weeds as they come through the surface. So if I go with the weed treatment and then the roller, I destroy the layer. If I don't have the time to go with the roller, I just do it in the spring instead. And this is just, it's with the SeedHawk. You get a field like this, and the seed grow in the bottom. You don't roll to compact or help the seed get moist, because you don't touch the seed with the roller. You just compress the top of the seed or the seed bed, and so therefore rolling is just to push down stones in my case, and we do so with all the cereals on the farm. In the spring, we come with fertilizer in the beginning of March, come again in the beginning of April, a weed treatment in the end of April, beginning of May, as well as a fertilizer treatment. Then 1 or 2 fungicide treatments, combine and transportation from the field. So about 1.45 hours per hectare and about 38.2 liters of diesel.
A few words about the agronomy. I will not speak much about the machine, the technical machine now, but a little bit how it works in the soil, the SeedHawk concept. To start with, what do we need to achieve? We need to clear the seed slot, place a seed, and close it well. And it sounds simple. It's not always that simple. And SeedHawk as a concept is a little bit by has taken both the best of a minimum disturbance drill and the tillage, put it together into a what we call micro strip tillage. So we do a strip, but it's very, very shallow, but we get the benefits here of the tillage. So it's, from that point of view, a little bit unique here. I brought this picture here, that's from Spain. I had a customer who bought the SeedHawk and he made a trial just like Martin here with his previous drill. This was a John Deere back in the days. But quite interesting to see the difference with the, you get a very fast and very nice looking emergence. I always like to look at history as well to understand the current. And when we start to look at how SeedHawk, where are the roots of that development? It started basically with air seeders back in the days. They were built on cultivators, so just pure cultivator tines. A big weakness of the air seeders, where if you have uneven fields like this, you still dropped, when you have tracks, you dropped your seeds on top of the soil, which is never a good thing, of course. To counteract that a little bit, came a development where there was a wheel, depth-keeping wheel placed on the back of the tine here, and also the tines got separated. So now, instead of having just a backward release, we had a release that was connected to a wheel. So we followed a little bit better, but only one way. SeedHawk further developed this a little bit more and made it two ways. So that way it follows the ground better. And if we look at what that gives us is a 40 centimeter way of working. Once again, a picture from Spain. It was a little bit dark at the time, but the farmer took us out to a place. He said, well, you must see this. This is just fun, he said. And he got stuck with his tractor. And but he said, oh, well, I'm going to continue to drill. So he just pulled the drill through and never thought much more about it until he came back again and saw, wow, it's still, everything is still coming in this tracks after tractor, just like on the top of the field here. So that shows a little bit how the adaptation works. We can do about 150 kilos on each row. That may not sound as very much, but it is sufficient. And the reason to this is that by using this angle here, we get a pull down into the soil. So by having that pull into the soil, we can reduce the weight of the machine and so on. That also, it's always good to, because that means we can reduce also pulling force and so on. So we can keep a relatively light machine, but still manage this. That gives us a possibility. We also always keep the seeding depth, basically. This picture here shows both the best and also a little bit of the disadvantage with the tine drill. You can see it keeps the seed depth in anything here. Disadvantage is that it, in some conditions, pulls up the stones. So, but that's how it is. But it's impressive that you can maintain good seed depth in such conditions, of course. It does also manage to do some seedbed preparation here. It pulls up moist soil that you drill into as well. And you do have two knives. That's a front knife here that works basically as a cultivator tine, but without any mixing ability. So it pulls open the soil and it puts the bigger clods on the sides here. And then comes the other knife here, and that's going like this. The first one went like that, and the other one, it goes like this. So we're pulling that direction instead. So that works more like milling, making really, really fine tilth. It cuts a shelf into the side wall, so where you place the seed on. So you place the seed on this shelf where you have moisture and everything. So you see it here roughly. And it gets really fine tilth for a perfect germination. And fine tilth, it's a key. It's for all the germination to be fast. It's to get a high germination rate. So we get basically the same germination rate as with tilling. That's a good thing. So we can save seeds on that. It makes it easier to close the seed slot as well. One effect on SeedHawk is that the wheel is always running right behind the two tines, and therefore we have tilled the land where the wheel is going. So the wheel is going in soft ground. That means it will not work like this all the time, compared to if we have the depth keeping wheel on hard ground here on the side that's untouched, that will be a little bit more shaky, so we have a calmer ride with the SeedHawk. And that gives us very even feeds like this. That's really beautiful. We get a very, very uniform seed depth due to that. We also managed to get a very nice work done for the small seeds. The small seeds, that's kind of the hardest thing to get going with no-till, because you still need the fine tilth, but you're only working very, very shallow. SeedHawk still, due to the 2 tines here, get this fine tilth going and covers the seed all the time, and you get very, very even emergence like that. We speak about forced separation with SeedHawk, and that's one of the things here we use for separation, that is between the fertilizer and the seed. By having the second knife here, that always covers the fertilizer, and that's important thing. We are far away to be protecting the seed, and we are close enough to access the fertilizer very, very fast. So that's good to keep in mind. And some people say, yeah, well, it's still 38 millimeters here, but consider that it takes every day in good conditions, the roots of a wheat plant are growing 2 to 3 centimeters. So we're not speaking about very long time until you reach a fertilized depot. With the current SeedHawk now with 3 tanks on it, you can also put a starter fertilizer here. But we don't recommend any big amounts here. A little bit phosphorus-based fertilizer, and then the big depot should be down here, so that we should not risk any germination speed for the seed. Fertilizer is hygroscopic. That means if we have a lot of fertilizer here and put the seed together with it, the fertilizer will always win the race for the moisture. So the seed cannot do that the same way. So therefore, it's so important. So that's always a risk when we place it together like this, that it can also land wrong, so to say, and not get the seed on the capillary soil. Martin mentioned before that there are other ways to work with the SeedHawk now than has been available before. So this is the traditional ways, which basically works in most cases, certainly. We can, like I mentioned here, also place a starter with the seed and the main depot here. We can, what Martin showed here, place 2 rows like this and thereby decreasing the distance. Instead of having 25 centimeters between each of them, we're now down to 17. So it gets more of a conventional drill distance here. And 2 rows means also we have half the amount of seeds in each of those rows. So that's also a benefit. There's also a possibility to do seed in both of the knives. Although we must be aware then that we take away a little bit of the tillage effect there, that we don't go as deep anymore. So, but there are possibilities here to use these things depending on what you want to achieve, how you want to work, which crops you work with, for example. So, but this is quite nice. You can tailor this fairly good nowadays. So, which was not as flexible back in the days. When we seed with SeedHawk, we have a great root development. We place the seed here on capillary ground. This is we made this experiment by putting a piece of plastic into the ground, and then we came back after a while, removed all the soil from one side, and we could see excellent how that seed was germinating. So that's a good visualization here. When using tines, we leave open bottoms and open sides. So that means moisture can travel both ways. So that's quite important. And the root here can choose either steady soil or loosened soil. So it's also one thing that, so this strip thinking a little bit, the root can take the best what fits it at the moment. We have good moisture access. Moisture is so crucial. By having the capillarity access, we get fine tilth, we close it right away, and then afterwards we also have a little bit of diffusion coming down. We can gather snow, we can gather also rain, since we have a small furrow in there. So there will be a little bit more moisture to the seed, to the fertilizer there. And the furrow effect of the SeedHawk is a very, very important part. Once again, we have the forced separation, but here we speak residues and seed and fertilizer that are never put together. And by doing this, we ensure that we never have any physical contact with seed and residue, and therefore we also get a very good seed-to-soil contact. And then when we look at the fertilizer, it's about the dissolving as well. If we don't have anything around the fertilizer, no residues, that dissolves faster, get accessibility quicker than it would otherwise do. And when we see here, when we have no residues here at all, that residue here is placed here as well. And that's a good thing also, because that means we have more insulation here, we have more weed suppression in this area. So that's a big benefit to have them in like that. We have no chaff. Chaff is what is around the ear where you have the grain. And the chaff is allelopathic, means that this can affect the germination rate of the coming crop. That chaff is also out of the way. So we take away many potential problems, because both around the seed or around the plant later, residues can be harmful. And so we should avoid if we can. When we till, which we do here with the microstrip tillage, we have the benefit of more warmth coming in here, and that's a really huge thing, because that helps a lot of the processes in the soil. So we are basically just like a tilled soil, even though we are doing no till. And this helps the time for germination to shorten that really much. So this is just to see the when we see the temperature and how many days are needed for germination. You can see higher temperature are less days needed. This is also just a laboratory table where you can do temperate, 6 degrees here, 25 up there. This is not wheat, but it's the same thing for all processes, that you see germination is already well on the way here. Here almost nothing happened so far. So it's temperature does play a huge role in this one for speeding up the process. And why is it important for a fast germination? That's we want to get the plant out of this sensible stage as soon as possible. A young plant is always sensible. So as soon as we get it growing really well, that's out of the risk zone, the highest risk. We also have the availability of nitrogen, which improves as well when we increase the temperature. So one of the reasons why we see a faster kick here when starting, we get a faster kick also with phosphorus. So two of the very, very important nutrients for the plant. We also, as a small little extra cream on the cake, of course get the mineralization from the tillage as well. So that's also another effect. So all of this together works for a very, very fast germination and early growth. New for the current SeedHawk is the disc here. If you have more cover crops than this, come to me. This was like a field from hell, if you ask me. It was full. It's from France. We wanted to test the absolute worst cover crop that was possible to find, and it went through without any problems. So we had a little bit discussion before lunch here regarding if this works also in straw residue. Yes, it does. It does not, though, take away the need to distribute the straw. So if only if it can do it, it doesn't mean that it's the best thing to do it. But so you should still pay good attention to straw distribution. But yes, it will go through. That's no problem. And we choose to place the disc on the arm. And that's simply because the machine is long. And if we will place the discs in the front of the machine, when we turn, we will have problems that the rows will not follow where you've been cutting with the discs. So it must be close to the distance here must be close if you want that to function well. It's always a little bit depending on what, when you're starting, especially with the SeedHawk, if you go from a tight row distance to a wider one, go a little bit angle. That's always better. Once you've been getting going, you can do like Martin here, that you seed between the rows and so, that opens up more possibilities. But going into other row distances, that's definitely a good thing to do. The best thing is if you can go with your shoes on the field without anything sticking to the soles, then you have best conditions for the SeedHawk. And the good thing is that once we've been working for a while with a no-till, these conditions will come sooner. So you remember the picture where you saw first year no-till and a long-term no-till soil. That long-term no-till soil will dry out sooner. It will be less of a problem. You will have a longer window of operation that you can work with the drill as well. Seed depth is always such a question. Here we have to see with the SeedHawk, it looks like we are seeding very, very shallow, but when we start to, it depends on how we measure. So, but the most important thing is to find the moisture and seed into that moisture. So, so that's a little bit interesting here, just to, but this furrow does create another surface structure, so that's what we're used to. And regarding seed rate, this is always a discussion. We are compared to a repeat, for example, spirit. We are widening the row distance, doubling that. How do we do with the seed rate? And here I will not come with a clear answer to you, because it depends a little bit on the school that you are driving according to. Some customers choose to reduce about 20% of the seed rate. Others want to go for the 1 ear and get that really good. So, and they maintain the seed rate completely. So it's a little bit up to oneself what you want to do. But these are the two schools, so to say, that there are. And we've seen Danish advisors been advising an increase in when you drill spring barley, that you should increase the rates where you do no-till. With SeedHawk, you don't have to think about that because you do till. So that's also a little bit, you need to understand that there is a certain amount of tillage, so you can also work as if though you did the tillage. You saw what Martin has been doing. This is also his photo here. Seed in between the rows. You can put in a bottom covering crop in the spring as well. It enables some things as well when we widen the row distances. SeedHawk is not a high-speed drill. Work with any tine in the soil will always be a limiter when it comes to high speed. So 6 to 8 kilometers per hour is roughly a good speed when you can expect a real good result as well. On the other hand, if we consider, we look before at Martin's time and everything here, since you're reducing so much all the other jobs you're doing in that soil, it still is very, very little time you're spending on your soil with the drill here, so doing the tillage and the drilling. So I don't see that as the major limiter here, definitely. So, thank you very much.